right, welcome to episode 31 of the Flag Stays Down podcast. No debate here. This is the Malang Sarr episode. Cult hero, Antonio Rudiger Jr. Love him. But boys, again, we're coming out of international break, and we still got all the crazy sanctions and everything like that. And then we got the shit show that was Brentford. But luckily, that was yesterday. We've had time to recover and in some cases drink more. But how are we feeling on this Sunday evening?
Doing good. It was not too eventful of a weekend, but my fiance's sister was in town for majority of the weekend, so got to hang out with her. Molly's been a little bit under the weather, so just kind of taking care of her a little bit. But yeah, all in all, doing good. I did get the opportunity to hang out with our resident Liverpool fan, Joe Mosh. So it was good seeing him this weekend. But yeah, like you said, a lot of ups and downs this weekend. And this week in general, it's just kind of the joys and the pain of being a football fan. Parks, how are you?
Where'd you find your ups? I mean, besides that Rudiger goal, man, I didn't have many ups this weekend. just from a sporting fan perspective, I guess. It was a tough one, man. I was saying to you guys before the pod started that I was so excited to finally watch Chelsea again. I was just eager and willing, and I was like, cool, we're back playing Brentford. Shouldn't be too hard of one, and we got shellacked. So yeah, it's tough. I've drank a lot this weekend. I shouldn't do as much as I do, but I did, and here we are.
Living the dream, right? Even if it's a nightmare.
Alex, how are you?
I am surprisingly zen today. Normally, I'm the one who's like down in the dumps about stuff, but I don't know. I don't know if it's because I just got done doing a P90X workout and I'm feeling the Tony Horton vibe, or what it is, or maybe it's because I'm finally starting on some Central Standard whiskey bourbon, or bourbon whiskey. Sorry, I got this mixed up. But Central Standard, love you. Feel free to shoot us a DM at any point. No, but yesterday just got comical. At one point, it was funny. It was funny to watch. I didn't enjoy it by any means, but like that fourth goal, it was just like, yeah, it had to happen. We've been riding high when the club has been so low for a couple of weeks now that it's like it was brewing. It was bound to happen, and of course, it's the first game after an international break against Brentford. Team newly promoted. It was, yeah, I don't know, odd. But but before we get into Brentford, let's get into the little bit of the proceedings there. There was a formal protest outside of Stamford Bridge in regards to the Ricketts family. The Ricketts responded. I don't know who is feeding them information, but they seem to always think that the door is open for them. But they proceeded to release an 8-point plan, what they're going to do as owners of Chelsea when and if that happens. And just to run them down real quick, make no changes to the club's name, badge, or crest, not changing the color blue without consent of supporters, no European Super League, commit resources, investing in the first team and leadership in the academy, putting diversity and inclusion at the heart of the club, creating an advisory committee to ensure that there's no racism, anything like that. Explore every option available to redevelop Stamford Bridge, match the current commitment to the Chelsea FC women, and continue vital charitable work of the Chelsea Foundation. Meanwhile, Team Bowley, silent, and I think that's probably for the best. But did the Ricketts family and now what's his name? Did David Griffin from the Cavs? Are they swaying you at all? Are you kind of jumping on Team Ricketts?
Oh. I think you lose less steam with me when you bring in the Cavs over because fuck the Cavs. No, I'm still on the hashtag no to Ricketts campaign for a lot of reasons. Uh, but this 8 point plan is not revolutionary by any means. It's not anything that is going to sway anybody. I would actually judge you more if you kind of read through this list and be like, "Oh, I'm really excited by this," because there ain't a lot here. And I don't know. I read a statement like this, and my first takeaway is like, this is a lawyer prepared statement. This isn't something that came from them. This is trying to win over some goodwill, and they obviously recognize that the majority of Chelsea fans, or at least the vocal Chelsea fans, are not standing behind them in this process. And they need to be a little bit more vocal to kind of combat that. Look, I get that. I understand where if I was bidding for a club and everyone was like, no to Parker, I'd be like trying to do something, right? I'd try to be putting some stuff out there. But I am just praying because there's two sides of this thing where Boley could be quiet because he's kind of quietly observing and waiting in the shadows and he's kind of like the front runner. Or it could be one of these like he's, getting shut out a little bit and not getting the same kind of attention from the media, or he's not getting the fair shake of being able to kind of present his stuff to. And he's more like abiding by the rules of we're not allowed to contact people yet, and we're not really allowed to make these statements. And I believe the Rain Group said, don't put stuff out in the media. We don't want this to turn into a circus. Don't kind of promote yourself on media sites. Don't do talk shows, things like that. So I'm praying the former is the case with him, but I'm just no, man. This hasn't swayed me one bit. You can say all you want, but I listened to the Matt Law special on I believe it's the London is Blue podcast, which is a pretty good listen. And even if Daddy Ricketts isn't on the bid officially, the fact that he holds political seat and political power, he's always going to be tied to it. And anytime he says something negatively, it's going to drag Chelsea through the mud. And when I heard that, I'm like, yep, you're absolutely right. And we jokingly talk a lot about guilty by association, but that brings the whole Ricketts family into that situation, right? Even if Daddy Ricketts, I don't know his name, there's too many Ricketts, I can't follow them all. Even if he's not on the bid himself, he's part of that family and he's tied to that family and he holds political seat and power. So when he does talk, it carries some weight, right? It gets some press clippings and people listen and people publish it, people write about it. So I don't want that, man. I don't want that kind of looking at it. If you've got dirty laundry, I want it hidden off in a closet, not for everyone to fucking see. So I'm still very much on the No to Ricketts campaign.
Yeah, I'm with you. No to Ricketts. Ricketts gives Ricketts, however you want to classify it. To me, and granted, I just looked at this right before we kind of hopped on. This seems like the most templated, like just a flat out template, like insert soccer club here. Nothing is revolutionary. Nothing is shocking. It's all just very PR, right? We're going to keep everything the same as it was. Could have answered that in one sentence. I don't know why you need 8 separate points, but yeah, you could just said we're going to keep everything the same. And I don't think it sways anybody one way or another. I really don't. I think it's just a statement. If anything, it hurts them because they're like, oh yeah, we're going to do all this stuff that the club has currently been doing and nothing's going to change. Well, nothing should change. I don't see why you have to come out and say, yeah, we're going to keep everything the same. Well, yeah, first of all, we know that probably half of what was outlaid in these 8 points is probably bullshit. I think we can all pretty much safely assume that. I wouldn't be surprised if Ricketts does get control of Chelsea if 10 years down the road he does change the color. Like, I wouldn't be surprised by any of that. I don't trust, what he's saying about investments to the academy and to the women's team and things like that. I don't see it as him being an owner that actually wants the best interest of the club. I think he is an owner who just wants to build his portfolio around, hey, look, I own Chelsea. To me, it doesn't seem like he's interested in the actual team. He's just interested in the name and having his name associated with Chelsea. So I am full blown no to Ricketts.
I wish I could have flown to London. I wish I had the fluid cash to fly out to London and be part of that protest. So, I couldn't make it, but I figure we have this little platform here. So I made myself a little, I'm flying the L. For those of you unfamiliar, not baseball fans or, not from the US, when the Cubs win, they fly the W. And here in Milwaukee, every time we beat the Cubs, we fly the L. So yeah, dude, just no to Ricketts, 100%. And I figured I'd at least do my due diligence on these 8 statements. There were a lot of them that, you couldn't really make a relation between their ownership of the Cubs and, possible ownership of Chelsea. But there were a couple where it's like, well, you're saying one thing and you've said that in the past with the Cubs, but you don't do it. Point number 3 about committing the resources necessary at all levels of the club. First team, leadership, academy. The Cubs had a championship window that opened in about 2014. They won the World Series in 2016, and since then they've slashed the payroll by 20%. They've traded away countless star players in their prime to rebuild. And again, for those of you not familiar, rebuilding is a very uniquely American thing, where you sell off all your good players, you accumulate draft picks. So, in essence, Chelsea would be selling all of their top players, finish last in the league, and we'd get to draft Jude Bellingham in the first round of the whatever hypothetical draft, so that you can win on the cheap, which is BS. Then you talk about, point number 4, putting diversity and inclusion at the heart of the club. The Cubs have a very racist and sexist history under Ricketts. There's a Chicago Sun-Times journalist who was called Aunt Jemima outside of Wrigley. LaTroy Hawkins, a black pitcher for the Cubs, used to receive racist mail from Cubs fans as a member of the Cubs. Vendors outside Wrigley Field selling shirts that say Albert Pujols mows my lawn. Like, why isn't that stuff being shut down? That's something that bothers me. And then finally, you look at exploring every option to redevelop Stamford Bridge. Ricketts said quite literally the exact same thing about Wrigley Field in 2013, and then threatened to leave their 100-year-old stadium because the city wouldn't fork over the cash to finance renovations. Tom Ricketts came out and said, quote, "All we really need is to be able to run our business like a business and not a museum." That's fine. That's fine if you want to treat it like a business. But ultimately, the sport, the club, the team is about the fans. And so, if you've got a 100-year-old stadium, Chelsea has a over 100-year-old stadium at this point now. You can redevelop it, but I swear to God, if you move this team, there's going to be a riot. And so just these points that they're making don't line up with what they've done in the past. And so I don't see it. I don't know. It comes off as insincere to me.
Correct me if I'm wrong here, because I'm not as fluent on like the Cubs history, but so Wrigley Field is unique in the sense where in the outfield there's seats that are kind of like corporate boxes on top of other rooftops. Didn't he like block off access to those and kind of control some of those seats as well?
Yep. So
which really rubbed people the wrong way.
The Cubs were really involved in the community, and the fact that there were rooftop seats in buildings across the street in both outfields, owned by local businesses. where, they'd sell tickets. You can go, they're great. I've been to them a few times. Eat all you want, drink all you want, see the game. So the Cubs built a giant ass Budweiser billboard and a giant scoreboard. Keep in mind, they already have a giant scoreboard in left field, and essentially put local businesses out of business. Now, granted, it's their stadium. They can technically do what they want, but in terms of community goodwill and working with the community to build up the club, it doesn't look great.
It doesn't.
So
Quickly, I just want to point out we have a new follower on Twitch. Thank you, Lennox_10, for following and joining us on Twitch, hanging out with us, having a drink with us. So appreciate you, man.
All right, let's should we talk some real actual game stuff?
Yeah, if we have to.
I feel like we've become the sanctions podcast. Sadly.
Well, it happens.
All right. So just a real quick rundown for those of you who either missed the game or turned it off after about 55 minutes. Chelsea lost 4-1 at home to Brentford. Antonio Rudiger, #striker Rudy, finally scores in the 48th minute, the longest strike in the Premier League in the last 15 years. And then Brentford going on to score for unanswered. Janelt Eriksson, of course, Christian Eriksen scoring his first Premier League goal against Chelsea. Then Janelt again, and Visa in the 87th. There was a lot to digest, and again, I found it comical after a while. But it was just such a weird game, and I'm curious, Matt, what was the main thing that stood out to you as to what made this game the way it was?
For me, the biggest thing was international break. We've talked about this before, right? We are a club that has a lot of very talented players that do go off on international duty and play for their teams. So you're talking about people like Timo, Rudy, Thiago Silva, Christian. I know Reece was originally supposed to be with England, but then came back. I believe Mount was there. Mendy, like you have all these high talented individuals going off on international break. So you patch that up along with the fact that this is the last round this was the last round of World Cup qualifiers, right? So there's even more emphasis on this particular break than probably most others. It's not just like, international friendlies, right? These are for your place in the World Cup. So there's a lot more emphasis on that. And then include the travel, right? You got people playing all over the world. You have the travel, you have the people coming back, which I think is why we didn't see necessarily the strongest lineup, especially kind of in the midfield. And we didn't see Christian starting on the right because he was doing his thing for the US. I don't know. I just think that you're on this international break. It's going to be a big break for a lot of people. And then when you go up against a team like a Brentford, nothing to lose. They're expected to lose. Nobody's giving them a fair shake at all. You go up against a team like that who will not have as many players on international break, so they get to rest up and heal, coming at a relatively, wounded Chelsea, and like a very tired Chelsea that still doesn't really have everything together, especially after that break. So I kind of chalk it up to that. Again, nothing really stood out. You could tell like the communication, which is normally pretty sound between Silva and Rudiger, just was not there, right? Just nothing. I think that was probably the most surprising thing. Two very professional and capable center backs, just not on the same page, and we haven't seen that all season. So I think that was kind of interesting. But yeah, I kind of chalk it up as a fluke, a team kind of taking advantage of us when we were just kind of still discombobulated from international duty. And honestly, I think that we may have been looking too much ahead to the Champions League on Wednesday. I think we might have overlooked Brentford as part of that process.
I agree. That was one of the notes I had down, is that we were coming out of the international break. 6 of the starters had featured for their national team over the international break. But the main thing for me was that midfield just didn't work. You know, you had Conte, Mount, and RLC. And if you look at the heat maps of where each individual player was, it looks as if Mount is playing right wing ahead of Ziyech. It looks like Conte is basically playing left wing with Timo Werner. I think the guys just didn't necessarily know where they were. I know Brentford was playing a high line, but just the familiarity. I don't know if we've seen that midfield three before. It was an odd one, especially because RLC was out there. RLC seemed to be out of position. Mason Mount just kind of floated, and I thought he had a decent game, but and then you look at Conte, and Conte's had a string of a couple matches now where it's been not the greatest. And so, did Tuchel kind of have to put out that lineup because of international break and those fixtures? Possibly. But it just shows how much, Matt, you're going to hate me, how much we need a Jorginho Kovacic midfield.
I'll agree with half of that.
The Jorginho part. Got it. All right.
Oh, because Kova made a pretty big difference the second he came on. And it's tough to sit there and watch and be like, damn, I wish he would have started for us. But I get you're kind of constrained, right? My favorite bit of Twitter after the match was hearing Thiago Silva's wife yell at commentators for saying that Thiago should have attacked more because he's 37. He played on Wednesday and then he had to get on a plane from Brazil all the way to London. So give him a freaking break, which was amazing bit of content if you haven't seen it. But she's right. Like, kind of what do you expect? And I feel like you're kind of put between a rock and a hard place when do you play him? Do you not? If he's not 100%, well, is a 70% Thiago Silva worth it to put out there? Like, probably, but you're also getting 70% of him. So, Collins, I'm with you though. I watched the game with kind of a weird smile on my face because you could kind of see it coming. The first half, which ended 0-0, wasn't great. We didn't have great opportunities. We didn't look threatening, and I felt like we should have been down. And then to get beat 4-1 after that, I was kind of like, well, yeah, that's kind of what maybe not as extreme as I thought it would have been, but I thought we were going to lose. And the greedy part of me was like, well, it's 0-0. And then after the Rudy goal, I'm like, hell, we're going to pull this off. We're going to find a way to sneak this out. Even down 2-1, I thought we could have snuck out a result, at least a draw. But you kind of get what you get sometimes, and the Premier League isn't always generous. So for me, the game, you guys touched on the midfield. I'll touch on Timo because I thought Timo was bad, and I think he is just not it for us. When he got the ball, it attacks died, and he didn't do anything for us to really propel us. I thought Kai was active. I thought Mace was active. Ziyech was doing what he could, but Loftus-Cheek had a poor game. Conte had a poor game. And then sort of ironically, I thought Rudiger had probably one of his worst games from a defensive standpoint. I mean, outside of the goal, I thought he was as shaky as he's looked from a defensive perspective, which is totally out of character for him. So I don't know. I would rather give up 4 goals in one game and then not concede the next 4 games than concede 1 in all of them, sort of a thing. Because if you're going to lose, you're going to lose. But it is tough to see your team drop 4 to Brentford. That's just not a good feeling. And yeah, it's one of the first times this seasons that I've kind of like had that oh shit moment. Like I thought we could have maybe pushed for something, and maybe we just don't have it this year. I'm hoping that we can still make a run at the Champions League, but the league itself is dead. I mean, let's just face it. I mean, Liverpool and City are just they're handling their business in the league, and we're just not.
Before we, because there's a lot of negatives in this match. Before we get any more into the negatives, let's talk about Antonio Rudiger's goal. We have been from just about day one of this pod, if not then a couple days in, using the hashtag Striker Rudy. For a while, he was our most consistent offensive threat, just making Rudy runs and banging from outside the box. And we've been saying for months and months and months, he's going to get one. He's going to get one. It's going to be fantastic. And oh my God, was this one fantastic? And I think Mason Mount and Kai Havertz just like, oh my God, just the awe from them it made it all worth it. Sadly, again, he didn't have a great game on the other side of the pitch, but what a goal that was.
I mean, you love to see it. Like there's nothing else you can say. You love to see it. We've always been waiting on Rudy just to catch one and for it to go. He had that one against, I believe it was Liverpool, from about 35 out that was on target, but was just saved. And to see him just absolutely throttle that ball, and I mean, the movement on it, the pace, the placement. Yeah, I'm sorry, nobody's stopping that. That was just absolutely ridiculous. He was due. For every 30 that he sends into the upper echelons of Stamford Bridge, he's going to connect on one. And when he does, it's going to be a doozy. And boy, was it. I was so excited to see that. And I'm taking that as the one bright spot. We love Rudy. We'll say it again. Pay that man when we can.
When we're able.
When we can, pay him, keep him, and let's also put this into perspective. That celebration, his celebration, if you have not seen it, please go out and watch it. That is the face of the king of shithousery. Just seeing that reaction from him. I've never had a bigger smile on my face watching that man than I did at that point, because it was hilarious.
Matt, let me ask you a quick question. If Ricketts amended it to make it a 9-point plan and number one was pay that man, would they have your backing?
I'm still going to say no.
Because the hope is Bowley does, right?
Yeah. Because I guarantee you that it's number one on Bowley's list. He hasn't released his 9-part plan yet, but when he does, that's going to be item number one.
It's just a 1-part plan, one point plan.
Yep. It's just going to say, we're going to pay that man. And everybody's going to know.
I kind of hate you though, because I was fully expecting Rudiger to lift his shirt up and say I signed the contract, because that's what you fucking called this whole time. And then I thought it was gonna happen. I was like, no, he does this, right? Like this this is what happens. And he didn't do it. And I'm like, shit, this is just me and my guys drinking whiskey and bullshitting about what we hope happens. I thought this podcast had influence.
Had it not been for the sanctions, he would have done it, right?
Yeah, exactly. It was a wonder strike, man. The fact that he was actually, he put some decent shots on target regardless of the goal. I mean, he was a pretty solid striking option for us yesterday. So we all said it. One has to go, and he couldn't have hit that sweeter, couldn't have placed it better. One finally went, and I love the run up to it, Matt, but the hug, the embrace from Tuchel was everything. That moment just seemed so genuine, like they've talked about it before. Like Tuchel in training said, like, I'm gonna get one of these, right? Like, this is gonna happen, man. And it I could just like see those conversations happening on the training grounds, and that embrace tells me everything. Yeah, that embrace was something that you love to see it. You hope he stays. I think he's Chelsea, right? We talk about Tuchel being Chelsea, or one of the most Chelsea managers we've ever had. Rudiger is Chelsea. We got to keep him.
The hug, man. The more we learned throughout the day about the club and about Tuchel and just everything, the hug was a great moment. You talk about Tuchel saying that he's confident that Rudiger will be a Chelsea man, and maybe that signifies that he's with going to be staying at the club. You talk about how much shit Tuchel has gone through with all the sanctions in the club, and the club not having a spokesperson for some fucking awful reason. And so Tuchel's that man, all the stress on his shoulders with that, and for Rudiger to come over and hug him. And then you find out, and I don't really want to get into this part because we're not TMZ, but then you find out that Tuchel's wife had filed for divorce that day. And you think about the hug in that moment, and it's, man, just that goal.
It's a real moment.
It is.
Right? We always look for those things, and that was about as real a moment as you get. From Tony hitting it to the celebration, which is full-blown Tony. Like, you don't expect anything less from him in that kind of moment. And then the hug with Tuchel, right? Everything was just genuine. As we found out later, in a match that didn't have a lot of high notes, that was a real football moment. And I'm very happy that I was able to watch it.
All right, let's go from up here to down here, because honestly, that was the rest of the match. We talked a little bit about Thiago Silva and how poorly he played. I didn't see anything in any of those comments. I thought Silva played fine. I thought, like we've talked about, Rudiger maybe didn't have the best game defensively. But really, outside of the midfield, I think our problem was in the attack. Kai Havertz, again, created. He did a great job creating. Mason Mount, again, had a pretty good game. Ziyech Parker, like you said, did what he could. But Timo Werner was a big old nothing. He was a black hole out there. And the more, and I don't usually listen back to the pods anymore, but the more I listened back to this week's pod about Timo Werner and the comments he made with Germany and the system not matching, the more I think, yeah, man, he's gone. He knows he's gone. He doesn't give a shit. And I think, honestly, this weekend was just the icing on the cake of that. He was so awful, and I can't pinpoint one specific thing about him that was awful.
Everything, it was a collective performance. I mean, we've talked about his unwillingness to initiate contact or anything. I'll take a step. Let me take a step back quick. The commentators were all over him for all of the same points that we've been bringing up week in and week out. So I'm like hearing them say it, and I'm like, yeah, exactly. Like, this is where we've been on him for the past couple of times. And his one highlight was like getting physical and actually winning the ball and then kicking it back out to like Alonso or something. It was a bad match. He didn't do anything, and it's where attacks go to die. If you want to just like kind of thwart it and just have it get reversed out, kick it to the left side, kick it to Timo, watch him run, watch him cut back in, and then give it to Alonso, who circles it to Conte, who circles it somewhere. Like, it's just frustrating, man. Like you said, Mace and Kai and Ziyech are trying to create. They're trying to play people in. They're trying to get people involved. And Timo just it was him and RLC for like my 1A and 1B. Get the fuck out of here. Just bad match, man. Just not involved. Negative space. Not doing anything out there.
And it's funny that you say where the plays go to die is on the left side, especially with Timo. And granted, this is assuming that Timo's onside, so we'll start with that. And we haven't even talked about his finishing or lack of finishing when he does get that opportunity, because that is about as non-existent as he was on the pitch against Brentford. I don't know why he can't put things on target. I don't know why he doesn't, just why he can barely get a ball past the first defender when he does shoot. He's probably got, I think Chelsea might have the most blocked shots or shots blocked than any other team in the league. And I guarantee you Timo is probably way up there. And if you look at like an individual breakdown, I don't think that he's not trying, right? I think that we've always said that about Timo, like, he's going to run. But at this point, you've been in the league long enough, what's expected of you. You've been under this system. You got to start doing something. And if the system doesn't fit, it doesn't fit, right? And, have him go back to the Bundesliga and maybe he'll find like a little bit of a resurrection there, which is fine. I mean, right? The Premier League isn't always cut out for everybody, just like, the German league isn't cut out for everybody. Like, that's fine. That's part of football. That's why we have so many different options of where you can go to play. Yeah, it might just be a case where, Timo is just not built for the Premier League, and that's fine. But at the end of the day, you gotta either show that you can do something, or you're gonna go elsewhere.
We talk about this match being comical, and honestly, the most comical thing is going to be this summer when Bayern Munich play Manchester City in Green Bay at Lambeau Field, and we all go, and Timo Werner scores a hat trick against City for Bayern. That's going to be the most comical thing that I've ever seen.
Write that down right now.
Yep. But you guys touched on more than just Timo. You guys touched on the left side. Ooh, is that a black hole over there? I mean, it's one thing to have Marcus Alonso, who cannot break a press to save his life. And then up top you have Timo, but then your outman in a 4-3-3 on that left side is N'Golo Kante, who we love N'Golo Kante, but he's not a possession guy. He's pretty erratic when he's on the ball, right? Why? But why not put Kante as the holding and RLC on that left side, or put excuse me, have Kova start or something. The fact that we went down that left side 32% of the time is astounding. Why do that? Why not just consistently go down the right? You look at Brentford, they went down the left 44% of the time, which is a crazy number. Why can't we do that? Why does it have to be so balanced?
It's a good point. And like, this isn't anything new. The left side has been kind of a nightmare for the last probably 3 months.
Since Chilwell went out.
Yeah, exactly. I can understand with who is out there. I can understand N'Golo Kante being on the left, right? You have to protect Alonso, who we know can't defend. We're shit. You've got Timo, who's basically lost on an island by himself doing God knows what. And then you have N'Golo Kante just trying to chase the ball down. So you have that. You're trying to, at least what my thought is, you're trying to defend more on the left side to account for Alonso and maybe force them back towards the middle or the left side, where you would have, RLC. You'll have Mount tracking back, Ziyech, you run him more towards Rudy, Thiago Silva, Dave. You run him more towards your experienced defenders and things like that. So I can understand it. But that combination, Alonso Conte and Timo, like, oof, you're not going to get much going down that side. You're just not. And I think the only time we really started to see anything happen on the left side was when the switch was made and Ziyech went down to the left. That was the only time you really saw some life on that side of the field. Which, I mean, that tells you all you need to know about Ziyech, right? He can perform wherever he needs to be. We obviously like him on the right, but he can switch over and play the left if needed. But that was the only time you ever saw anything somewhat promising, right? Was when Ziyech came over. So I don't know. I feel like people were just out there to be out there because you couldn't really put anybody else in, or maybe you didn't trust them for the full 90, right? Coming off a break, you know that you have Real Madrid coming up 4 days after the match. And I think Tuchel made a decision to say, all right, we're going to put out a relatively competitive team in the Premier League, but our main focus is going to be the Champions League and against Real Madrid. So thinking about it like that, at least it puts myself at ease, just knowing, okay, fine, it's Brentford. Not really our best squad, not really our most available lineup, but the focus is on the Champions League because that's where we have the most at stake. We're the reigning champions. Premier League race is kind of out of the question. So let's focus our efforts there.
I don't disagree with you at all, Matt. I think it's if it works out and we end up moving forward in the Champions League, I think we're all happy campers as long as we keep our top four status. Obviously, if we drop out of that, it's a little bit different of an argument. But my final thoughts on Timo. The biggest debate I saw was is it Timo Murata or is it who's our other
Timo Torres.
Timo Torres, thank you. So just the comparisons, right? Just the striker that gets lost in our system, kind of a thing. The big name signing that just doesn't live up to the hype. It'll be Timo Lukaku at some point as well, too, right? Because he failed to impress as well. But
all right,
he's been struggling.
Let's turn ahead like Chelsea did. We'll look towards the Champions League here. Real Madrid, again, feel like we played them the last couple of years now in the Champions League. Definitely last year, I know that for sure. But they're coming in top of La Liga. Although I believe they just got smashed by Barcelona in El Clasico. Is that right? 4-0.
Yes.
So they've got a little chip on their shoulder. We're coming in as a little wounded animal here. Somehow I'm oddly confident. You see the stats that Chelsea have never lost to Real Madrid in European competition, which is a blow my mind fact. And just the fact that we've got what we have consistently said are big game players, big game Kai, got Christian Pulisic, Antonio Rudiger, Thiago Silva. We need the midfield to step up, honestly, I think. But I don't really have a doubt about this tie. I think over two legs, I think we advance. But I'm curious to know if I'm just kind of floating out in La La Land here, or if you guys are feeling the same way.
Parks?
You mentioned all of our big game players, Collins. My one big takeaway is big game Tuchel. I trust our manager in a two-leg knockout more than I've ever trusted a manager. So for the game plan, for the resting people for Brentford kind of a thing, and I trust him to figure Madrid out, and I trust us to move on. So I'm weirdly blindly confident as well. I think we move on easy, and maybe I eat those words, but I really do. I think I'm very confident that we move on.
All right, I'll be that guy.
Weird.
So, although I agree with I've never had more faith in manager than when I do with Tuchel. We've talked about this before. We have a lot of faith in him for half the game. Not necessarily the start, but definitely in the second half. So over 2 legs, right? You're looking for one game, right? 2 good halves, 1 game. If you can make that work, good. But that is putting a lot of eggs into that basket. So that makes me still a little bit nervous. And Madrid, yeah, they did get their ass handed to them by Barcelona in a huge game. But I mean, Benzema is playing out of his mind right now. He's scoring from anywhere he wants. It's an experienced side, with Modric, Cruz, Benzema. I don't think Bale's I think got a tea time or something that day. Hazard, we know, had surgery, so he's not going to be playing. Vinicius Jr., he could be a problem depending on if you have Dave or Reese there. And the other thing that worries me is the right side. Like, are we really going to trust Alonso to have, I don't even know who would that be? Lucas Vasquez running down the right, or like Isco or Asensio, whatever, having them bomb down the right and just making Alonso look stupid. So it's all the same stuff that I have been worried about and that we've all been worried about as we look at, most of our games. Like, all right, well, we know that they're going to attack Alonso. I think in a game like this, I'll say it. I think in a game like this, you need Jorginho and Kova both starting. If you're running your 3-4-3 or whatever the standard is, if you're running a 4-3-3, then I think you run all the big boys. I think you run Kova, Kante, and Jorginho. And then you would run, right now, I think that you would run Ziyech on the right, and I will say Christian on the left, because Christian has found himself. He's found his project restart. Christian Pulisic that we all love, that was damn near untouchable. He's found that form again. I think you have to ride that. I think Mason has been playing a lot better, but Christian, I think, would get the nod, and then obviously Kai up top. So I just think that in a game like this, everybody's got to show out, and you need to put your most experienced and your best players out there and give yourself the best chance of winning.
So who's your guys' X factor? Who's going to determine whether we win or lose in the opening fixture? Well, Matt, we'll start with you on that one.
Conde. I think he's going to be the biggest thing, because when you're looking at the midfield, you're looking at, for Real Madrid, you're looking at Casemiro, Toni Kroos, Luka Modric. They're not slouches, right? It's a pretty damn good midfield. I think Conte being able to run an attack and keep that high press on them to try and force them out of making those long ball passes or a lot of those one-touch link-up plays, I think he is going to be the biggest factor in this game. If he can disrupt that will ultimately create more opportunities for us. Like we said, he hasn't been in the best of form lately, but he was also the best midfielder for the Champions League last year. He knows how to turn on in big games. He knows what he needs to do and how to do it. So I think he is going to be the key to moving us through to the next round.
To your point, Matt, when he's playing in the proper position and his role is that disruptor, he's at his best. When he's a little bit out of position, he has these kind of slouch games, and we kind of look at him like, are you the same N'Golo Kante that you've always been? But he is. He's just not in that role, right? My X factor, though, I think I'm going to cheat just a little bit, Collins. It's the link up between Pulisic and Kai, because I think that's going to be the key to the game. If if Pulisic comes out with that really aggressive, I can take people on mentalities, he's going to make something happen and he's going to find Kai and Kai's going to be able to finish. And I think if those guys can link up and play off of each other and play some 1-2s and play some through balls, I think goals are going to come through it because it's going to be a little bit more of an open match. And I think that space is going to be there. So I think they'll have their opportunities, and Kai's in the form to say, yep, I'm finishing. And Christian's going to have a little bit of that creative space to say, I'm going at him. So those two together is the X factor for me.
You know, I was going to say Christian because I like the whole, you don't know where I'm from, dog, at, what was it, Panama that we just played? And the making the
Costa
deuce,
Rica game.
yeah, Costa Rica, and making the doing deuce face at the ref. Like, I just loved all that. I love fired up Captain America. But I'm going to go Marcus Alonso. Marcus Alonso seemingly shits the bed against the worst teams in the league. But then I've noticed this. I didn't want to ruin it, but by mentioning it, but he has his best games against best teams. You look at the times we played Liverpool this year and he has baited Mo Salah into attacking goal. And then, sometimes he gets juked out. But Mo Salah hasn't scored on us this year. He hasn't assisted on us this year. He bends, but does not. He has. Mohammed. Oh yeah, he did.
The first, yeah.
I'm thinking the Carabao Cup final. Marcus Alonso
way better. Alonso versus Salah that second time in the final was way better.
Yes.
Than the first time we played them in the season.
He was just like the Green Bay Packer defense: bend but don't break. Give up a lot of yards, give up a lot of space, but you don't allow points, don't allow goals. So I think if we see that Marcus Alonso, that's going to go a long way to A, keeping a clean sheet, and B, coming away with an advantage after this first tie.
What I would ideally like to see is Costa Rica, Pulisic. I want to see Liverpool, Kai Havertz. And I want to see the pissed off Hakim Ziyech that just takes on the world. If you give me all three of those at the same time, that is going to be fun. And I think that's what they all need. They just need something just to piss them off, something to rile them up. And I know we were all talking when Christian started going off, like with everything with Costa Rica. That was fun. Like, I love it. And then, like, it's almost like your team plays better pissed off. Get Dave pissed off, see what he does. Don't piss off Rudiger. You know what's going to happen. Kova doesn't get pissed. Jorginho only gets pissed at his own team. Conte, I don't think I've ever seen him upset. But if you give me that front three of pissed off individuals that have no regard for who they are going up against, that's going to be fun. And that's going to be very dangerous. That's what I'd like to see.
I forgot all about Mr. Take It Over, Hakim Ziyech. Oh, that's a completely out of this world player that I love so much. I hope you're right. I really do.
This team embodies a lot of like what Oshkosh did back in the day when we played, which was we play better when we're pissed off and don't see us on our bad days because, man, we're going to come at you. And I love that. I love a little bit of edge. I love that, like, fearful, we kind of do what we want attitudes a little bit. And, it's just that attitude of play and the style of play that I've seen come out of this team, and we're at our best when our guys are taking it to people and when they have a little bit of a smirk, have a little bit of a swag, play with some cockiness, play a little bit, not dirty, but physical, and go at it, man. I love it. I want to see it.
Dave just needs to go out there and say, somebody care.
Nice.
Oh, the joke that 4 people will understand, but thank you for that.
All right. On that note, I think that's enough of this shitty Brentford game. For those of you interested on Pod After Dark this week, we are going to we are going to be doing a breakdown of the World Cup draw. So that should be fun, along with our predictions. But in the meantime, those of you who have checked in on Twitch, Lennox specifically in this one, thank you for watching. We encourage everyone to, subscribe on Twitch? I don't know.
I don't know if people can subscribe to us on Twitch. I don't know if we have that. Follow us for sure.
Yeah, follow. That's what it is. Thank you.
But subscribe is to pay, and I don't know if we can even like have that yet. I don't know how Twitch works, man.
We're not about the money. We're not the Ricketts family. So with that, please give us a follow on Twitch. We stream every Sunday evening, well, most Sunday evenings at 8:30 p.m. U.S. Central Time. Otherwise, you listen to us anywhere, Google Podcasts, Apple, Stitcher, etc. So feel free to subscribe and please rate and review if you do listen to us there. That helps us spread the word of who we are, and spread our bullshit. And finally, you can follow us on social media. You can follow the podcast on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at FlagDownPod. You can find me on Twitter at Comiskey North. My name is Andy. You can follow Matt at Matus Lee, and you can follow Parker at DJ Parkour. Boys, I was feeling kind of weirdly optimistic going into the pod, and I feel even weirdlier, more optimistic coming out of this one. I feel a big win coming this week, and I feel like it's because we talked about it.
If not, we can just hope and dream, right, Collins? We can just we'll talk about the losses, we'll talk about the wins. Either way, we're all getting together on Sunday night and having a couple. So it's all good, man.
And I can always edit out the we're gonna win part at a later date.
That's always good to have in your back pocket.
All right, boys. Cheers.
I'm all potted out.